What is up, fun times? It is Tuesday. It is 11 a.m. Eastern. It is me. I'm back. Fortunately, had to skip last week, but, duty calls. Work is a little bit more important sometimes and had some busy things to do, so. But I'm back. All right. Cool. So today we're going to be dealing with a little bit of Kubernetes, a little bit of Jenkins. A lot has happened since the last time we met. Last week, my AWS lab went kaput and I had to rebuild it. So a lot of what I've been doing has been centered around rebuilding that back up. So a lot of what we were doing in the last stream has already been done. I've gone ahead and finished off my policy, finished setting up Jenkins, which we'll dive into today and do some work in a little bit later. Also was able to deploy Kubernetes back into AWS, and so I'd like to deploy a couple applications in there. But first, I always like to take a look at my GitHub notifications to see if anything's out there. Lucky for me, today there isn't. There is one thing, but it's with one of these organizations here, and I don't feel like signing in and dealing with it. And I already know what it is, so I'll deal with it later. So today I need to do a couple things first. So let's go over to Jenkins first and sign into Jenkins. And so I have Jenkins up and running here. I've got a couple jobs that run periodically. Also got my demo stuff back in here for my different dev teams, and everything seems to be working okay. But this is the newest addition here, this Conjure policies pipeline. Because the policies that I was working on before, I went ahead and automated the load into Conjure while we were separated from each other. And so this is the repository here that I store all of my Conjure policy at. So I added a Jenkins file. And so this Jenkins file, anytime my job here, it's going to be polling SCM for any changes every minute, basically, because I don't care. If it sees any changes in the repository, it's going to kick off this pipeline. And so it'll install my Cyber CLI. If you've watched in the past, you understand what the Cyber CLI is. We authenticate with it using credentials from within Conjure, using the Conjure secret credential plugin here. Log on and non-interactively using those environment variables, and then go ahead and load all of the policies. I created a shell script to be able to do that for us. So that shell script, whoops, there used to be a back there in Firefox. I guess they removed that. This load policies is just running through an appending policy for everything. So I'm never going to replace, never going to update that policy, always going to add on to that policy. If for whatever reason I change one of these policies like this one here, and it runs through and appends all of these, it won't see any changes for all of these policies. Nothing will happen. It'll just move on and then look for the one delta, which would end up being the policy that was changed. So pretty cool here. Downfalls to this process is that anytime that I add a policy to the repository, I then need to not only update my README so that I have the load order here, but I also need to update the load policies. So I'm thinking of only having the load policies list out the load order, changing the policy load order to reference that shell script. If you need to know the order, that'll remove my need to constantly update the README file here. And then I just need to figure out how I can deal with this shell script. It's not really that big of a deal to have to update it. I wish there was a way that I could automate it, but I can't really think of a way of automating it because the way that you load the policy and the order it's loaded into is very important. So if I was just needing to add on to the bottom of this file, easy peasy, write a GitHub action or a Jenkins pipeline to take care of that for me. But unfortunately, I have to stick things in here. Like here's one for Tallis that I had to stick in the middle. And for me to be able to create intelligent automation that can deal with stuff like that and figure out where things need to go is just impossible. I was going to say near impossible, but it's impossible. So all these policies are loaded up into my Conjur instance now, and then ran through Jenkins. So you can see yesterday I had added James Creamer, who is one of my colleagues at CyberArk, as an auditor so that he could test just logging in using secure web sessions, which is a new product that was released by CyberArk. And so it recognized that user being added, kicked off the automation to load the policy, and then I was able to share with him his user ID information for him to go ahead and test that out. And within 5 minutes, I had policy loaded, James logging in, and successfully testing out secure web session connections to the Conjur UI. So really liking the state of this. What I would like to do, though, is take this Cyber CLI pipeline here that I've got working and kind of expand upon it a bit. What I've got going here with the Cyber CLI pipeline, if we just take a quick review of that Jenkins file, there's a bunch of different stages that kick off anytime that there's a change made here. Same idea. Well, actually, I don't even have it polling SCM, so this is something I need to manually build, which is fine for me. I typically only do this for when I'm demonstrating a real world. Oh my gosh, I keep trying to right click and then go to back. So Firefox, if you use it on Mac OS in the past, used to, in the right click menu, have back, forward, and then refresh buttons like are up here, but they were in the right click context menu. And the reason that I got muscle memory doing that is because I have a mouse that has the navigation side buttons for back and forward and whatever. Never used to work in Firefox up until I think I finally found it a couple days ago, actually. And so I always had to, for ease of use, right click and then go back like this. But now certain places that you click may have, I guess, not a back, but other things. And so the back button works now, and I keep forgetting that. So I can go back and forward just by clicking on my mouse buttons, which is cool. Wish it would have came a little bit sooner so I didn't muscle memory this, but whatever. It's all good. If you see me doing that, that's what I'm doing. It's just me holding on to old tricks. No, it's Druzy. No TB12 hat, but I will. Do I have it in here? I think I might. Let me see if I can do this without. Yeah, here we go. We've got two TB12 hats, actually. So we've got red TB12 hat for the Bucks and then blue TB12 from the Patriots. So we can wear the TB12 hat if you'd like. I don't mind it. It doesn't really go much with the orange, but you know, it's all good. So we've got our TB12 hat on. I'll actually just put it back here for now, so you can see it in the background. All right, cool. Now, with all of that said, Cyber CLI, let's take a look at the Jenkins file real quick. I know I had came into it. So basically what I'm doing here is vetting, go vet. So it used to be go lint, and then it would go to go vet. But go lint apparently has been deprecated and archived, which was surprising to me. Let me see if I can get back to it on GitHub. We'll just look for it this way. Yeah, Golang lint. So check this out. I came here and I'm like, hold on a second. I needed to deploy this for into Jenkins, as part of my pipeline and stuff. And the repository's been archived by the owner and deprecated. And if you come down here, it's deprecated and frozen. So GoLint apparently is not the way that you should be linting Go anymore, but they suggest either static check and go vet. So I've not used static check except for inside of VS Code when I'm writing like a shell script. I think if we go here, or maybe that's shell check then. That's not static check, that's shell check. So shell check checks my different shell scripts and stuff in VS Code as part of an extension, but I haven't looked at static check. I don't really know what the differences between the two are. I just figure if I'm using one that was recommended, then we're in a better place than we were not using either. So That is the deal with golint being deprecated. So now we go vet, and then we test. And these tests, these are unit tests that are throughout the project for all the different endpoints and stuff like that, doing assertions. And in order for the tests to be able to successfully pass or fail, but hopefully just pass, it needs secrets. It needs secrets for logging into CyberArk's PAM solution. It needs secrets for being able to authenticate to our central credential provider using client certificate authentication. All of this is secret information. I don't want people getting this information and being able to log into my stuff, even though I'm pretty good with my security groups in AWS. I don't want to leave it to chance still. And so I'm able to capture these from Conjur. This is a LDAP-based service account that I keep rotation on. So now I don't need to come in here and change anything in Jenkins or change anything in my pipeline script, because I'm pulling the password just in time anyways. Makes it a lot easier for me. Unfortunately for the client certificate and the client key, they do need to be stored base 64 encoded because the CyberArk Vault doesn't have the capability of keeping line breaks and things like that when you have it in a password, which is how these are being stored. So I do need to base 64 encode them before it goes in, and then base 64 decode when it comes out. So that's what I'm taking care of here. But all the secrets come in and they're used as environment variables for my testing. And then from there, if we pass the testing stage, I go ahead and build binaries just like I do when I release out when I cut a release through GitHub. And then instead of putting them on GitHub in the releases, I put them out on S3 so that I can get them from there in my Cyber CLI releases bucket. So cool stuff. There's also, access key information that's needed for that I get from Conjur to be able to make that connection to S3 to copy everything over. So that's the Jenkins pipeline for Cyber CLI as it stands today. The changes that I would like to make is moving the AWS specific stuff out of Jenkins over to Ansible Tower, so that Ansible Tower takes care of that. And then adding a stage in here in place of this that triggers a job or jobs, depending on what other things I want to do as far as deployment is concerned, to have Ansible jobs triggered and things like that. Now, I could also, I do kind of need a place that's shared between Jenkins and Ansible Tower to be able to, when I build the binaries and stuff, I need a place that is shared between the two platforms from a storage perspective for Ansible to be able to deploy what Jenkins had built. So I'm kind of tossing up in the air, maybe just keeping this and then adding on and having Ansible pull from AWS S3 and then doing something like, deploying it to, having it deployed to, like basically cutting a release on GitHub. But I kind of like controlling that on my own from a GitHub perspective. So maybe like in the future, I'll do something like that, but at least getting it deployed onto my AWS EC2 instance that I do a lot of work from, and that I have the Cyber CLI on. So yeah, so that's that. Let me go ahead and clear this out. And so with that, let me come up here and break some things. So I'm going to need to go to settings and to developer settings, and then to personal access tokens. And then I'm going to have to hide my screen already because I accidentally showed you my personal access token for GitHub. So we're going to move on over to secrets while I do this. I'm going to need to rotate my personal access token here. So while I do that, just give me a second. And then it's Druzy, I see your question. I'll get to you in a sec. All right. We are going to regenerate token. We're going to have it expire in a couple days. Generate, copy. I'm going to use conceal to set my GitHub token. So now that is up. Well, oh, do I have to unset? Oh, I can't just update. Oh, we're going to have to fix that in conceal. Ooh, we have something that I want to do in conceal finally. That's good news. All right, so I'll add that issue here after I turn my screen back on. All right, let's set it again. All right, let me update it in the last pass just so that I have it just in case. Personal access, edit, paste, save. All right. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I just did that. Now I get to regenerate it again. Oh, what a day already. What a day already. All right. Regenerate. Hoy boy. Gotta love it. All right. This time we're going to do it and then clear it. I'll be quicker at it this time. Personal. Boom. 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 All right. Now, get me off of this page before I show everybody again. All right. There we go. Cool. So, let's see. It's Druzy. Quick question. How do you get that path? I need a little bit more information on the path because that was probably a question in relation to something I was showing at the time, and I completely forgot. You know, I went through Cyber CLI and a couple Jenkins files and stuff like that. So let me know in chat. Rob, my GitHub token is not hanging out in a config file. It is used though for random things, mainly different automation that I have going on locally and things like that. Oh, okay. So in Jenkins File, I had variable paths to retrieve from Conjur. How does the developer find that path? So that's a great question here. So Jenkins File does reference credentials IDs, right? And it looks like a path that would exist in Conjur, but it's not exactly that. And so what happens is I'll kind of walk through how I set up Jenkins here with our Conjur secrets plugin so that it kind of answers that question at the same time. So in Jenkins, what I did was I went ahead and installed the Conjur secrets plugin, which if we were to manage plugins, we would be able to see already installed here. Down, Conjur secrets plugin. So this is recently updated. It supports you providing an identity utilizing JWT, which is generated by the Jenkins host itself. So if we take a look at configuring the system where we would configure this, this is the initial setup that it takes. So it's going to need, my account name for the Conjur service as well as where that service lives. And then I went ahead and enabled Jwt Authentication for this. So I set my service ID that was declared through policy that I loaded when I enabled this authenticator. I created just a random hex value for the JWT audience, just something unique that I can identify through policy. And then I enabled what's called a context-aware credential stores. And this is the bread and butter for how the secrets get into Jenkins in an automated fashion. And so when I enable this, what that essentially does is it allows each of these jobs and folders that you see here on the screen to have their own Conjur secrets like credential store within Jenkins. So if we were talking specifically Cyber CLI, since that's the Jenkins file we're looking at, there's a credentials section here in Jenkins that's specific to my Cyber CLI project. And if we click there, we'll be able to see I have a Conjur credential store that's assigned to this. And what happened in the background when I loaded this was Jenkins, the platform, and our plugin reached out to my Conjur service that I have configured, and it said, hey, I am the project cyber-CLI. I have these claims in my JWT. This JWT is signed. You can check the JSON web key set URI that was given to you in policy just to confirm that, make sure everything is good to go. But I am the cyber-CLI project, therefore I need all of the secrets information, just the path, not the value, just the path. I need all of that for the cyber-CLI host ID. What does it have access to? Give me all of that. I want to go ahead and populate it and set little path markers inside of the Conjur credential store here in Jenkins. So all of these different secrets that you see are synced over from my vault. The cyber-CLI host ID has access to read and execute via policy. So all I'm referencing here is the credential ID in my Jenkins files. And what will happen is when this job kicks off and it runs, it will generate a JWT and utilize that to authenticate over to Conjur. Conjur will look at the claims, match up the claims with what is trusted in policy, and then it'll hand over the value directly to the job, and then it will be put into environment variables that I describe here. So that's what that Conjur secret credential kind is using. It's essentially a kind, right? This would typically be, if you were using the Jenkins credential store, you would use string, if it was a string, or you would use username password would be another kind of credential that you could store. We happen to, when you install the plugin, create Conjur secret credential, Conjur username password, and Conjur SSH key or something like that. Yeah, Mr. Heartstomper, these are all saved as videos on demand for every stream that I do, and then they are also they only exist, since I'm not like an affiliate or a partner or anything like that, for about, I think, 60 days or something like that, maybe even shorter than that. But either way, after every show, I export it over to my YouTube channel. I guess I should add it to Streambots so that you can kind of figure out how to get there. It's just Infamous Joe G. So it's the same username over on YouTube, and there's a playlist on my channel where I save all of these videos on demand as well. So you can always go back and watch them there if you happen to miss one, you need some information, you want to review something or whatever. So this is how, Conjur is able to deal with Jenkins. And the cool thing about the Jwt authentication is that you'll notice I have no host identity in here anymore. Before, what we needed to do when we were using our Jenkins plugin, this is prior to DevOps World this year, when we introduced this updated plugin that includes Jwt authentication. What you had to do before, there was no section for Jwt. It was literally just, and I'm going to hide that part, but it was just this. You had your account, you had your appliance URL, you had to load into the Jenkins credential store a host ID and an API key, and then select it from this drop-down here. But you don't need to do that anymore, because we're using the claims on the Jwt to identify the workload that's happening within Jenkins. And this is also, US patented too. One of my good friends who no longer works for us, but was a great developer when he did, Andrew Copeland, worked in tandem with someone in our on our biz dev team, Edward Nunez, who actually created the Jenkins plugin that we were just looking at. They received the patent for identifying computing processes on automation servers. So this plugin is really the first of its kind to utilize this US patent, and probably the only one of its kind. So thanks to Andrew and Edward for getting this out there and getting it registered with the patent and everything like that. So you can come and check this out. It's on the USPTO website as a granted patent. But many more things to come in regards to that, I'm sure. I don't know what it'll be, but there's a lot of different cases that we can use. So that's the Jenkins part of today. Kind of want to figure out how to marry it or do something in Ansible. But I'm kind of burned out from Jenkins, to be honest with you. I've been dealing a lot with it, obviously, after my AWS environment burned to the ground, which was totally my fault. It wasn't anything to do with AWS. I just misplaced one of my private keys that I'd used for all of my Linux EC2 instances, and it was just easier for me to start over since I had already been working on migrating to a fresh instance of Conjur anyways. So if we have time, we'll take a look at this. But I really want to focus in on Kubernetes today. I've been working with this a lot more recently, and have gotten pretty far with it. I used this. Oh gosh, this is this Kubernetes cluster lives in AWS. As you can see, it's behind an ELB, and it was deployed using something called kOps. I don't know if you have ever heard of it before. There's a bunch of different things that you can use out there. I use kOps. I tend to like kOps. There's KubeSpray. There's, you could use EKS, some of the managed Kubernetes and cloud providers. I did make a real attempt at using EKS, but I kind of scrapped it because it was taking a little bit longer than I wanted to deploy the cluster because it was a new thing to me. So I just went the kOps route and had that deployed very easily. So I have a master and a node in AWS running on EC2 instances for Kubernetes that was deployed by kOps. So that's out there. I've got it registered with a domain. Route 53 is taking care of my DNS for the domain. Using network load balancers in AWS for everything, including external services, as you can see here. And then, a token authentication to get in. So I can use conceal to get that out of my OSX keychain to go ahead and sign in. And for whatever reason, I don't know why it does this, but it's constantly throwing me into some error anytime I log in. Not that it matters. I mean, it's not like I have access to everything. So, I mean, here's all my namespaces. I can get it to work. I think it kind of goes to ingresses, which I don't have any ingress set up because I'm using NLBs through AWS. So maybe that's where it's defaulting me to or something like that. I don't really know. But here's the workspace. I just have, the very default stuff installed. So this is everything that gets installed to start up a Kubernetes cluster. The kOps controller is one that is installed by kOps, and then the dashboard and metrics scraper and Kubernetes dashboard deployments are ones that I deployed in order to get this dashboard to work. So that's not how out of the box Kubernetes rolls, but I like to visually see things. Also makes demonstrations a lot easier when I need to bounce into logs or show the different values that are assigned to pods and things like that. So if we were to take a look at like the Kubernetes dashboard, this is the pod information for the Kubernetes dashboard pod. And you can scroll down to the bottom and see, container information. So there's a couple arguments that this container is ran with in this pod. And so when it gets to demonstration time and I have, some sort of demo app that I need to show, how things are happening, it's just a lot easier for me to scroll down here and have a customer understand what's going on rather than trying to dive into a YAML-based manifest and explain what's going on. And it seems magical and smoke and mirrors, and people typically tune out when they see too much source code. So get to keep it fresh here. I deal with a lot of security teams. They tend to like things to be, visually displayed in some sort of GUI or whatever. So it is what it is, right? I mean, I know there's 50 other ways of being able to get this information and show it, but this is the way I chose. I got Cuban coffee this morning at 7-Eleven down the road. They upgraded all their coffee machines. And one of the coffee machines has legit just Cuban coffee. Oh my gosh. I should have never found that. I love Cuban coffee so much. I'm going to be drinking so much of that. 7-Eleven knew. They knew what they were doing. So today I want to deploy a couple demo apps into here. I also want to set up the Conjur Authenticator for Kubernetes, which has been a long time since I've done that. So that means I'm going to be looking at a lot of documentation. And so luckily the documentation for this authenticator has been updated recently, and I really, really like it. I already deployed the authenticator before on my last Conjur instance, before everything went to shit. And this documentation, I used this documentation, it worked great. It used to be different, but from what I understand, a team of people who are in other departments than just, the people who deal with documentation got together and made sure that it was understandable from every angle. And so it's the first documentation for an integration written in this way, but I really like it. And the way it works is that you have basically the story of a Conjur admin and a Kubernetes cluster admin. And so as you walk through and you're needing to configure, enable, and set up the authenticator, things are labeled whether the Conjur admin needs to take care of it or the Kubernetes cluster admin. Whereas before, there was none of this delineation. It was basically up to the person reading the documentation to figure out who needed to do what. And 9 times out of 10, a Conjur admin is not also going to be a Kubernetes cluster admin, so there's got to be some sort of collaboration there across teams. And being able to communicate who needed to do what was a hassle. So the new documentation really defines, okay, Conjur admin's going to do this, Conjur admin's going to do this because it's policy related. But then as we get down to, something down here, maybe we have, okay, I guess we don't. Are we just enabling the authenticator here? Oh, there we go. So admin and cluster admin needs to do this. So the Kubernetes cluster admin will take care of this part. And then further on down the line, the Conjur admin has to do something, to enable whatever and add secrets and stuff like that. So this is what I'm going to follow today. Tell me in chat if you want me to keep the documentation up or if you want me to move it off to the side and just focus on what I'm doing in the Kubernetes dashboard, because I can do it either way, honestly. But whatever. Okay, so I got yes to both, which is unhelpful. Oh, both, like you want both on the screen, or yes to you don't care? That's the question. Mr. Heartstomper out there making me confused. We'll see. He seems to be the chattiest. I know what it's Druzy wants. All of it. I can imagine Rob wants this. I'll just keep the documentation up so that way you can follow along with me. Plus, I don't want to keep doing this. I can make it happen on one monitor, and then we can see how we do it. All right, cool. So let's take a look at the Kubernetes Authenticator. There's some prereqs here. We're going to need a Conjur admin, me. Also a Kubernetes cluster admin, also me. The configuration assumes we're working from a Linux shell or Mac OS. We are on Mac OS. We need the Conjur CLI installed. No, we don't. We need Cyber CLI installed, which we do. We are on... it's been a couple versions since the last time, so... so Cyber is at 017, and now my terminal's locked up. Oh my gosh, what is going on here? iTerm, you mess up. Whatever, force quit. And then reload. So I'm going to show you guys every role today. And so Conjur CLI will be replaced by the Cyber CLI. Cluster namespace preparation Helm charts available in the following locations. You must add Helm chart repositories one at a time. Well, what am I going to use that for? I guess we'll just remember that that's there in case we need a Helm chart or something like that. What's this? Continue. Oh gosh. We'll wait for it to come in. Approve. All right. So let's see. What? Oh, it's the Authenticator Client. That's why. Okay. So this Authenticator Client, oh gosh, I don't want to talk about it quite yet, but this is what's going to keep our application container authenticated with Conjur after we enable the Authenticator and everything. Okay, so I guess there's Helm charts for that. That's the raw manifest. What's the Helm chart repository here? What do we have in here? We have a bunch of open source stuff, and that's it. So that's all of the Helm charts we have are for deploying Conjur open source, which we're not even using here today. We're using the enterprise. Okay, so we don't need this then. So we can close that out. We will need this later, but we'll get it from Docker Hub and move it into ECR, which is the Elastic Container Repository. And so I do have a YubiKey, by the way. I don't know where it is. Oh, it's on my keychain out far away. I don't use it. What I use instead is whatever the heck is available to me on the computer. So sometimes that will be something called Krypton, which I use when I SSH, as well as sign commits using my PGP key and things like that. You can go to crypt.co and learn more about it there. It was free. It should still be free. They were recently acquired by Akamai, and now they changed the name to Akamai MFA, whatever. But they should still have down here in the products. There we go. Oh my gosh, did they completely? Oh, it was a hero page that I didn't. Okay, you guys scroll past it then. Anyways, this is it. I mean, it's open source. It's out on GitHub, so it doesn't really matter. It's pretty cool though. Doing MFA. It uses the same FIDO U2F as YubiKey. But it's a software, not a hardware. And then you can have the plugin installed and then use it as your authenticator. Anywho, all right, back to Kubernetes. We're going to be defining our authenticator service ID via policy. We're going to enable this. We are not going to enable the seed service. Reason being is that my Kubernetes dashboard here and all of the services that deploy utilize a certificate that was generated by Amazon's certificate manager. And so the root CA that signed those certificates don't match with my Conjur signed root CA, which is Sectigo. And so there'll be a clash from the third-party root CA front, but also the certificate that is being used in ACM is a wildcard cert. Don't tell anybody that. Just kidding. It doesn't matter. It's a wildcard cert, and so it doesn't play nice with Conjur anyways because of that wildcard. So we're just going to completely avoid deploying a follower into the Kubernetes cluster, even though if you were talking to me anytime else, I would say deploy the follower into the cluster so it's next to your applications. Since this is just a lab for me, I'll just have it communicate directly back to the leader. I don't care. I'm not going to be pounding it with anything major. Just a couple demo apps and stuff like that. So it'll suffice for that. We'll be able to skip this whole part. We'll still have to initialize a CA, configure access to Kubernetes, and then play the cluster admin part by creating resources and getting details from Kubernetes so that we can configure that access to Kubernetes as the Conjur admin. This, as well as this, this and this will be done through policy as code into Conjur. This, I believe, is probably some sort of evoke command on the leader itself, but we'll see when we get there. It's been a minute, like I said, since I did any of this, so we're going to be experiencing it for the first time ourselves. So I should already be logged into the Cyber CLI. I don't know if I have that as a, maybe I should make who am I that, but I should already be logged in as admin anyways, so it doesn't matter, and we can figure that out just by listing, and it should be all resources. Oh yeah, so yeah, that is definitely the admin. As you can see, it has access to literally everything, because that's how I set up my environment. So that's good. Step one, easy. Define the Kubernetes Authenticator identity in Conjur, which I believe I've also done already. So this Authenticator web service YAML file that they kind of give you an example of, it's creating this is a service ID here. So this portion Conjur and then often Kubernetes is going to always be the same. This is the path to the Authenticator web service. And then your service ID is going to be this portion here. And this is kind of like if you have more than one cluster, you're going to need to identify those clusters in a segregated way. So you have, prod, QA, dev, if that's the way you do it. In my case, I think I just went with prod for the service ID. We can take a look here in a second at my policy. Then it has us creating 3 variables, one for the service account token, one for the CA cert, and then one for the API URL, and then 2 additional ones for the CA cert and key, enabling the web service on the service ID. So that's what this is doing here. It'll just be named the same as this up here. And then we'll create a consumers group, and that group, any members of that group will be permitted to authenticate using this particular authenticator. So not only does the identities that we're going to create need to be a member of the consumers group to be able to authenticate over the Kubernetes Authenticator, but then separately they'll need to be authorized to access the secrets that they're attempting to execute, read and execute from within Conjur. So it's kind of twofold there. You have to not only be allowed to authenticate, but then also allowed to access the secrets that you want. So this should already be created and loaded because I have it created in my Conjur policies repository. And so under Authn is where I keep all of that. And here's Authenticates, Conjur demo. Okay, I called it Conjur demo instead for the service ID. So it used to be prod. I changed it to Conjur demo. Good for me because it's not prod. But everything else is the same as what I just showed you, right? Everything is the same from here down. I added a couple annotations here just to not only describe the policy very briefly, but also added this, Kubernetes true. What this does is it adds a badge that says Kubernetes to the policy when it's loaded. And then as far as down here in the permit statement, the differences between read and authenticate, or if this was like to a secret, it'd be execute. Read is what we use for basically auditors, right? So that allows you the ability to see that it even exists. If we were to log into my Conjur UI as the admin, you'll be able to see as soon as we log in that less than a minute ago, or let me just access a secret real quick. So here, if we take a look at the audit actions now on this, less than a minute ago, admin successfully checked if they can read the secret. So yeah, we were able to read the secret, so I can see that this secret exists. I can see the annotations, the kind that it is, all of these details. But unless I have execute applied as well, this may or may not be able to be shown. So in my case, this is just a URL to the Conjur service that I use in GitHub Actions. But I wouldn't be able to do this if I only had read permission. So that's typically something we give to auditors or to automation that doesn't need access to the secret, but may need some sort of access to read annotations, because that's another way that we empower automation to be able to identify groups of secrets. If we were to take a look at for some of the synchronized secrets here, you'll notice that the annotation for CyberArk Vault is true. So you may have some sort of automation that runs reporting where you need to report on all of the secrets that are synchronized to Conjur from the CyberArk vault. And so your automated service account would only need read permissions to everything, not the ability to see the secrets, because it just needs to look for this particular annotation to create the report that these are all the secrets that I saw in Conjur that came from the CyberArk vault. Bada bing. Cool. So we've got that already loaded. That policy is loaded. I should just keep the UI open, honestly, and then refresh it as I need to, because this policy will be Conjur often, yep, right here. So this is the policy that is already loaded. There's the badge showing the integrations it applies to. We've got a consumers group that's created, and then the policy is the owner of the resources it created, which happens to be that consumers group, all of those variables, and then remember the web service that we went ahead and activated here. That's the web service. So that's loaded, good to go. We don't need to worry about this, already loaded. We don't need to enable the seed generation service. What this does, the seed generation service, is it allows you to horizontally scale your followers. So if you happen to have a pod in Kubernetes or OpenShift with a follower living in it, this would be the way that we can dynamically enroll additional replicas of the Conjur follower into the Conjur cluster. You would basically spin up a replica, an unconfigured Conjur appliance would spin up. It would immediately attach to an init container that deals with this seed generation, and that init container will take care of basically getting all of the certificates and tokens and everything that container, that follower will need to introduce itself and become trusted within the Conjur cluster. A lot of stuff, super technical stuff, doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's an unattended way of being able to scale out your followers, have them automatically introduced into the cluster without needing to do anything manually whatsoever. This seed generator and the fetcher service that spins up next to the follower is going to take care of that and then terminate itself once the follower is configured and healthy. So we're going to skip this, though. We're not deploying a follower into the Kubernetes cluster. I did want to, though, until I realized I couldn't, so that I could show this off and stuff and do a little bit of auto scaling up and down, but maybe another time. Let me clap. Let me go check on the dogs real quick. I hear them crying out there and hitting stuff, and I think that one of them needs to go out. Let me disconnect here real quick. I'll be right back. Okay. So we need to, I guess, next initialize the CA. So we're going to create a private key and a root certificate. The content of these files is stored in the variables that were created by our policy. So we need to create some environment variables, create a config environment variable, which looks like a CSR, generate the private key, generate the root CA certificate, and then verify the certificate and load it in. Okay. I guess I do this on anywhere, I imagine. I don't see where I need to do anything with it other than just load it into variables. So what that solves, I have no idea. Maybe there's something later on that it matters for. But so we'll just go ahead and do it here locally. Let's see here. We'll go ahead and move to, I'll move to my Conjure policies. Oh my gosh, I got so many freaking Conjure stuff. All right, we'll just do it here. So service ID is going to be, I named it Conjure demo. Conjure account is going to be CyberArk demo. Config is going to be rec distinguished name. Make sure I get that right. So DN X509 extensions are going to be v3ca. DN is going to be nothing. Okay. v3ca basic. Oh, look, there's a bash script that handles this a lot cleaner than the manual steps. Too bad that's not documented on the page for us to be able to use, or else I would probably try it. So critical, ca true, subject key identifier. It's going to be hash, little hash, authority, key identifier. Key ID always, issuer always. Enter, 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 enter. Oh, I have to do the, oh shit. I gotta do this. Well, now what does it look like? Is it a bunch of, oh God. That's better. We'll open SSL genRSA out ca.key 2048. Now we'll open SSL rec. I could copy this. I probably should just copy the stupid stuff, but I'm a glutton for punishment and typos as well, so I will probably avoid that. Set serial to this. We'll go out to ca.cert. Oh gosh. All right, we'll do this. Go subject is cn equals conjure dot. Oh, okay, interesting. So it's a cert for the specific service ID and the authenticator. It doesn't really have anything to do with anything else. Is that a capital O? Yeah, it must be. And then Conjure account. That's gonna glob. Is this right? Okay. Open SSL x509 in ca.cert text no out. Okay, so it set that. Good. Good. I guess this is okay. Meh. Now we got to load the values. All right. So, well, I have access to the UI, so I don't need to use this. What do I need here? I need to put the key and the cert in their proper places through secrets. So let's go to CA key. And so this is going to be that key. Let me go ahead and just to be on the safe side, kind of block this from happening. And I'll go ahead and paste that into the secret for the private key. Save that. All right. And so, whoops, hit my mic. And then we got to do the cert here. And so we need to initialize this. So this would come up 404. Like if I try to grab this secret right now, cyber conjur, what's the command here for this get secret? I will be the path to the variable. Oh, what is Callie? What do you want? It'll come back as like 404 not found. But the second that we we'll cat that CA cert and is it PB clip? Is it just clip? I thought it was PB clip, no? P clip? I forget what it's called. Anyways, we'll just cat it out and copy it the old way. Now it'll become initialized, and if we were to run that command again, it would come back with the secret. So now that it's initialized, we can get that value. That's how that works. Cool. All right, so both are loaded. We'll go on to the next step now. Create Kubernetes resources for the Authenticator. All right, so the cluster admin now needs to come into play. I'm changing hats here. We're going to create the following Kubernetes resources for the Kubernetes Authenticator: a namespace, a service account, a cluster role, a golden config map containing the Conjur connection and configuration information. Callie. My dog's crying for some reason. Callie. What you doing? Huh? What's wrong? Do you want to go outside? Okay. Jeez, these dogs today, man. My wife's not here, so I don't have any backup. No, we're not going for a walk. She's super bored. Super duper bored. I mean, I wish I could help her. I'll take her for a walk after this. Huh? Are you gonna bother me the whole time till I take you for a walk? Huh? You can wait 55 minutes. All right. So we already know all this information here. We don't need to obtain anything from the Conjur admin, so that's good news. Oh, so now they finally talk about a script here that we can use to retrieve the SSL certificate from Conjur and save it to a file. And it's out on the Authenticator Client GitHub website. For a follower that's external to the Kubernetes cluster, this is what probably we're going to follow here. But I already know what this does. It does this command here. Let me show my tool belt. So it's basically doing an OpenSSL command like this. So OpenSSL as client shows certs connect to the Conjur service, and then we're going to basically grab the information and output it to conjur.pem. Same thing that's going on here, only they've hidden it into a shell script. I keep it in my snippets because I use it enough and stuff. So we can just run this and then have that saved down to conjur.pem so that we can move on with life. So now we have apparently a couple methods here that we can use to prepare the Kubernetes cluster. The Helm chart is used to create per cluster Kubernetes objects necessary to support Conjur Kubernetes authentication on a Kubernetes cluster. That was a lot of Kubernetes being said. To install the Conjur cluster preparation Helm, but what does it do? That's what I want to know. It's going to create a namespace. For what purpose? I'm not installing a follower. It's going to set a bunch of stuff up. But like what? Is it going to try and install Conjur or something like that there? I don't want that to happen. Well, raw manifest. We can see what's going to go on here. So let's go to the repository. So this is not the raw manifest repository. This is the Helm chart repository. You can download the raw Kubernetes manifest from the Conjur Authenticator Client GitHub repository, but not the one that's linked, a completely different one. So I guess I have to scroll up to the top to get the right one here. And so let's see if we can find a manifest here. I want to understand what's going on before I just start willy-nilly throwing stuff out there. Let's go. Design? No. Not Helm, right? Why would it be Helm? Package? No. There's no YAML files except for the secrets one here. Does it say in here? Maybe it's on the Helm website and it wasn't wrong and I was just complaining. Let's see. Okay, so here's Helm charts. There's docs. Everything is tarred. See, it's all like for Conjur OSS though. I don't want to deploy Conjur OSS into Kubernetes. And then even when they view all, it all comes back as Conjur OSS. So why do I need to do this? This is confusing me. What is this section? Create Kubernetes resources for the Kubernetes Authenticator. Rob says open a ticket. Yeah, let me go ahead and do that right now. Oh boy. All right, so we got the cert. I mean, is this where I would deploy my app or whatever that I wanted to connect to? Or like use the authenticator? I don't know. I think I might have to skip it here. I don't know. All right, well, let's just configure Conjur to access the Kubernetes API first. Yeah, so Rob, the authenticator and the app are deployed into the same pod. So if we, they're deployed into the same pod. The authenticator is a sidecar container to the application container, and they share a memory volume. And so the authenticator's sole purpose in life is to keep a constant authenticated session token for Conjur's API in the shared memory volume so that the application container can access it and authenticate to get secrets anytime it needs to without having to do any extra steps whatsoever. And so that's the authenticator's whole role in a nutshell. Every 6 minutes, making sure that that token is refreshed. So if the application needs access to Conjur's API, it has it. It doesn't have to worry about login, authenticate, and all these other REST API requests going through. It's just one. All right, so we're going to need to obtain the Kubernetes cluster details that are listed below. It's fine by me. So they've provided me with example commands, so that's nice. We're not going to be using OpenShift, so we'll be sticking with kubectl. And then this is how we decode the base. It's based 64-D. I think it's just base 64. That's a, yeah, there's no. It's base 64-D. Yeah. Okay. So base no D 64-D. So we'll need to get the Kubernetes service account token first. And I guess we could, oh. Wait, so this is going to be the service account token for that namespace. But do I am I creating a namespace just to have a service account? I don't want to deploy anything there. I don't want to deploy a follower there or anything. This is not going as smoothly as it did the last time I did this. A namespace, a service account, a cluster role, and a golden config map. Maybe that's all that's needed by the namespace. Like it's just there to hold the config map and the cluster role and the service account and stuff, but there's no real resources that are being loaded into it as far as containers are concerned. Yeah, okay, we did this part. So you can download the raw Kubernetes manifest from the Conjur Authenticator Client GitHub repository, which is not linked here. That is for Helm charts. All right, well, let's give it a shot. Fuck it. I mean, worst case scenario, I delete the namespace, right? So we'll download this. Give me. Just save it. All right, that was quick. All right, get out of here. So we'll move it from downloads over to here. I really shouldn't be using this directory. I need to clean it up though, or git ignore stuff. We will tar xcvf conjur. We'll go in. What do we got? We've got that script, and then we've got the raw manifests. Let's go and check those out, and we'll open them up in code. This way I can see them. All right, so we've got a cluster and a main namespace. So cluster prep, what is this doing here? It's creating our service account, creating our config map, creating our cluster role. Okay. What is the namespace doing? Conjure connect. Okay, so this is... I guess this is what would be included with an application. Let's just follow the instructions. I'm not going to try and predict what the heck is going to happen here. All right, so raw manifest, we're going to change a couple values in it, and we're going to create the namespace and then apply it, but why can't we just define the namespace here and whatever, we'll just create it. All right, so we're going to, it doesn't say which one to upload or to apply through kubectl. I'm going to assume it's the cluster prep one because I'm not quite ready to deploy an application. So this is going to be the one that we're going to want to use. Let's see if there's anything that we need to change here. No. Here, config map, authenticator ID is going to be Conjur authenticates authenticator ID to use for authentication. Well, would have been nice to have an example because I don't know if, I guess it's the whole authenticator ID, so it'd be Conjur authn K8s and then Conjur demo. I guess if it was called service ID, then we would just give it Conjur-demo. So we'll try this first. If anything fails, we'll just roll back and try again. Big deal. Conjur cluster role, Conjur service account. This is going to be the Conjur account, so CyberArk demo. Conjur appliance URL. It's going to be... that's going to be Conjur, joegarcia.dev. Now, I wonder, I need to open up some ports on my security group for this, so I can't forget that. I roll with trusted third-party SSL certificates. So typically, when I meet up with this SSL certificate BS, I just don't do it. But we did create. Okay, so that's just the Conjur certificate file. I guess I'll add it. Oh, yeah. Go back to here, and then we'll cat that. So this is my certificate that we got from using that OpenSSL command. And so I'll put that here. Jeez, there it goes. It's quite the chain going. Whatever. We'll see. Hopefully that works. Cluster role stuff. Nothing there. So I guess that's it. We'll go ahead and save this. So this is what I'm going to apply. I've got to create the namespace and then apply this policy, and then we cross our fingers and hope that it works. So kubectl, let me get nodes and make sure that I'm connected to AWS. I am. I'm good to go. Look at that. Oh, coffee's starting to get a little cold. I almost forgot about it. All right, kubectl. Create namespace. We're going to call it what? Pretty sure this is defined in that manifest that we just showed. Where is it? Okay, so they don't reference the namespace anywhere in here, so I guess that's good. I can make it whatever I want. Oh no, wait, they said it had to be something, I think, on the docs site. Let's see. A namespace called CyberArk-Conjur. Okay. So that's what we're going to call it. CyberArk-Conjur. See? Easy peasy stuff right there. And then I think we just apply what we just created. So we're going to kubectl apply to the namespace CyberArk Conjur, the file. Oh, what was it called? Conjur config cluster. Bing. Boom. Invalid YAML. Yeah, I knew that was going to happen. I don't know what to do with this. How am I supposed to give you an SSL certificate if you flip out about it? So there is a separator here, but that's supposed to be there. I mean, they're separating, you know, the different kinds of things that we're defining here. So I think it's reading. It's not like, let's see what Darren does. I always like to copy off of Darren Kahn. He knows a little bit more about this than me. He created this cool thing called the Conjure configurator. And I use this all the time for POCs. Anytime I need to test a sandbox, I mean, you just run this setup script and it does everything for you and asks you questions through a menu. So just to give you a quick example of what that looks like, because I really love it a lot. Oh my gosh, my typing is off today. Sorry. Everything's off today with me, I guess. So we'll go to Captain Fluffy Toes to his Conjure configurator. And then from here we set up .sh. And so it's just all menu based. So I can say, yeah, okay, we're going to delete that. I can say, okay, I want to menu option 1, deploy a Conjure instance container. And it'll look and check, and I don't have Docker, so it kind of crashes out. But then it would ask you, do you want it to be a leader, standby, a follower? Do you want to include a load balancer? And it just goes out and it does all this automatically for you. Well, one of these things is to create a follower manifest, but also it has within it some boilerplate manifest stuff for Kubernetes. So that's what I want to take a look at. Here it is. So he's doing an end of file here. So he's creating the namespace, he's creating the service account, the cluster role binding, config map here, and then a main deployment. And this is for an application. So this is going to be the init container, the Authenticator sidecar. And then the actual node container, which is the application that's going to be running. And then it's all tied together through volume mounts and stuff like that are shared across. Yeah, I'm not getting anything out of here. So, man, that sucks. because I don't know how to handle this certificate. Invalid. It's like at the end of it, though. It's an end of a certificate. I wish it gave me a line number in the YAML so I could just go to it. I guess we just keep searching or something? Yeah, maybe I messed something up. So it's not here. It's got to be one of these end certificates. Probably the last one, I'd imagine. Here. Let's Google it. I ain't got time for this shit. Kubernetes SSL certificate in manifest, whatever. This is not going to get me where I need to be. I don't need to get them. I just need to figure out how I can get this policy loaded. How do they do it in Helm? Maybe we could take a look at Helm. Or, well, not the raw. We need to, where is it? Up at the top. Here it is. This is turning into an adventure. So they have the information for the Helm charts here, but under docs, oh, they're all fucking zipped up. Here we go. I wish I could just give a path to where it lives. I think that's why Darren deals with config maps, because he just loads it into a config map instead. Yeah, I don't see it anywhere in here. Maybe I have something in GIS. I like to save stuff in GIS when I'm successful with. Whoa, oh no, that's different. We're gonna go. Here's policy. That's not what I need though. What else do I have? Maybe this? No, that's the Go app for that I made. No. Damn, man. Now I'm just stuck. That sucks. Maybe I'm missing something here. They got to do some tests or something. What's in here? I'm not seeing anything. Oh, here's their test stuff. Maybe I'll figure something out in here. Because they would need to test the different manifests. What is this? Yeah, that's unhelpful. Yeesh. Maybe this? Namespace prep? So they're using a config map here. Oh boy. So yeah, I don't see how I can handle this. I mean, I can always just do this and delete it. Screw it. So, I mean, the whole idea behind needing to provide this is usually to create trust when you're utilizing a self-signed certificate, but I'm not using a self-signed certificate. I'm using a trusted third-party SSL certificate that was signed by trusted third-party root CA that is commonly trusted. I'm going to try avoiding needing to provide that altogether so that I can get this load it in here. So everything created, whether or not it's going to work is beyond me. I don't know if that was necessary, if it wasn't, how I would deal with that, but at least we can carry on and see if it breaks and stuff. So that'll get us past that step. My assumption is that I don't need to do anything with it. So it looks like there's some more stuff though that we need to do after this. So we're going to configure Conjur to access the Kubernetes API now. So we're going to get the token that was just created and save it to the token secret name. And I guess this is the command that they want us to run. And I don't feel like typing it out, so I'm just going to start pasting things. We've got about 30 minutes left to the top of the hour, and that's when I'm going to have to move on to some other things. So I don't want to spend too much time here. This is going to be it, right? Okay. Seems like it worked. Let me go ahead and check that. What's up, Stop Sign Cam? Look at that. Stop Sign Cam is following me. I love stop sign cams, especially when they catch people running them. But I imagine that the only person who would see any benefit to stop sign cams are the police, because then they can give out a lot of tickets and make a lot of money. Yeah, sorry, stop sign cam. It complains about emojis too much. I need to turn that off though. I would love to see the emotes and stuff that you're sending out there. Let me double check this token and make sure that it's actually populated with a value here. So I'm going into secret mode so that I can, and there's nothing there. So whatever command they gave me absolutely did not work. I'm going to have to give that another shot. So what are we trying to do here? Let's do this in general. Cube CTL, kubectl. We're going to get secrets for CyberArk Conjur. I'm not going to grep anything. I feel like that's maybe what's breaking it, but we're going to look for an authn Kubernetes service account token. I'm going to hide this because I just don't want to, it's going to spam the screen with a bunch of stuff. Oh, okay, so I see it. There it is. So it's not what they thought it was called. It is most definitely something else. So we're going to say, to get this secret, we're going to, oh my gosh. So get secret CyberArk Conjur output equals go template .data .token base 64 -d. At least they got the command right in there. All right, so I've got my token now, base 64 encoded. I'm going to clear, and then we can come back on. And so I'm going to save this into my Snipper app so that I can get to it when I need it. But you cannot see it. So this is going to be the Kate's SA token. All right. Cool. We've got, so I did this. All I did was, instead of trying to get the secret name, I just ran this here to get all of the secret names. I found the one for the SA, for the service account, and then just added that in here, ran this completely, and it gave an output that looks similar to this. So now I need to get the cluster API URL, which I already know what it is. It's actually going to be, it's already exposed and stuff like that, so I don't need to worry about this part. I mean, I guess I could run this just to see if it'll work. Whoops. Oh my gosh. Little double paste there. So yeah, exactly what I thought it was. So that's good. And it wants a certificate. But what kind of it's just a certificate, so I guess this is okay. No private key action going on here. So we'll output this too. And this is the command that it gave me. So it looks like it'll be returned base64 encoded, and so we need to base64 decode it over here. So I got my URL, my certificate that I'm going to load up, and then I have my token, which nobody saw, luckily, unlike earlier today when I exposed my personal access token to GitHub about 3 times and had to keep regenerating it. I've had enough coffee now. I don't have to worry about what's up, Security EXP. How you doing, man? Good to see you. Good to have you. All right, so we've got everything that I need now according to our documentation. We're going to rock and roll, and we're going to load up some secrets here. I'm going to use the Conjure UI. I could use CyberCLI, but I'm going to use the Conjure UI because it's a little bit easier, and we're going to load up the API URL that we have up here. We're going to load up the certificate into the CA cert section, and then the token that I got, we're going to load into the service account token. So if we pop over to my Conjure UI, I'm sure that the 8 minutes has expired since I initially logged in, and we can do that by just going anywhere. So I'll need to re-authenticate. And then we come to secrets, and we're going to look for K8S. And so we've got our different secrets here for configuration. So the API URL, we'll start with that. We need to initialize it. There's nothing there. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this and paste that there, save. We've got that done. We can then go back, search again, the CA cert this time. We're going to copy that. This way, Conjure will be able to trust the communication coming from my Kubernetes cluster when it needs to communicate with it in order to be able to check out all the different attributes and stuff like that. I'll kind of explain that here in a second. I've got a quick diagram that I can show, and I'll kind of tell you what we're setting up here and just kind of recap. And then the token, we need to do the token. So we'll come back here, filter, service account token. I will copy that off screen, and I will paste it in here. All right, save that and hide it again and come down and back. So we've got that initialized now. The service account token has been added. You can see if we were to refresh that, I went ahead and viewed it and edited it, updated it and stuff like that. So we have all of our variables here populated. Now we're at the part where we need to enable the authenticator. And so this is where I need to do it from within the Conjure leader itself. So we'll take a quick pause here for a second, and I'll kind of explain what I'm setting up here with this Kubernetes Authenticator. Let me load up the diagram that kind of explains what's going on so that I can explain it for everyone. I'm going to use PowerPoint because I have it animated on a slide. So we have, let's see, here we go. We'll use this one. So the authenticator is used for, basically authenticating an application container. So this is typically, this application project here is typically, how things would run without any introduction to Conjure or any authenticator or anything like that, minus this shared storage here. So you have your pod where an application container lives. Be whatever you want, maybe it needs access to a database or something like that lives elsewhere. I don't know, but eventually it's going to need secrets either to connect to a service, connect to a back end of some kind. And so your application container lives in this pod. This pod has its own metadata itself. It has a name. It has a service account that's assigned to it. It has different tags that you can add to it if you'd like. Application container has the same on itself, so you can add additional metadata to the application container. And then the namespace that all of this lives in also has its own metadata, like name or different tags. You could also assign, I think you can assign a service account to the namespace level. I'm not quite sure. But either way, there's identifying factors to the namespace as well. And so the whole idea of what we're doing here is we're trying to authenticate this application container to be able to make a request to our little worker bees, our followers that live in another namespace within the cluster, or in my case, it's the leader that sits outside of the cluster. But we want that application container to be able to make a single API request to get secrets that it may need to make connections to whatever, right? Or use them however it's going to use them. And the way that we do that is basically what I've been going through and setting up on this stream so far today is we create a policy. And that policy not only creates the web service that will be used for the authenticator that we'll get to here in a second to make a connection and authenticate to the Conjur service, but it also defines information about that application. It can be information about the pod it lives in, information about the service account that's applied to the pod, information about some different tags that we need to look for, the namespace that it lives in. All of that metadata that I talked about exists on namespaces, pods, service accounts, containers, things like that. All of this can be populated and loaded into Conjur through this policy as code. And so we want to define that before our application can get access and authenticate to the leader, because it really creates that trust. We have a baseline now for trusting a request from something. And once that gets loaded into the leader and stuff like that, that policy goes into effect, and we now have knowledge from a Conjur admin, which we've been kind of playing the role of while we're creating this policy. We have knowledge from a Conjur admin of what we can trust. Now, when I deploy my application container that needs secrets into a Kubernetes pod, I'm going to also deploy an init container, a sidecar container that is provided by Conjur called an Authenticator Client. And as I said before, the sole purpose of this Authenticator Client is to ensure that there is an always authenticated session token for our API located in this shared storage that the app container can access to make its API requests for secrets. But it does have one other job, and that is to create a certificate signing request that includes all of the identifying parts of the puzzle. When it spins up, it's going to immediately take a poll of, okay, this is the namespace I'm in, this is the pod that I'm in, this is all of the metadata associated with that. I'm connected to this app container, and there's metadata associated with that. And so I'm going to take all this information and I'm going to write it into my certificate signing request. And then it's going to take that certificate signing request and send it across to either the follower that lives in cluster in most situations. In my situation, though, it's going to come out to the leader. Once one of our nodes receives that CSR, it's going to take a look at all of the metadata that was included with that CSR, and it's going to talk to the underlying Kubernetes API. So this works with OpenShift, works with Rancher, works with all of your managed Kubernetes services from cloud providers, because they all still have the Kubernetes API as the foundation that we use in order to identify and authenticate workloads. If you think back to that US patent that I showed earlier, where we're able to identify processes running in automation platforms, here we are again, right? We showed how it was done in Jenkins utilizing JSON web tokens. Now we can show how it's done in container orchestration. Kubernetes, OpenShift, Rancher, whatever else is out there. I mean, there's so many. K3S, right? I think is a minified version of Kubernetes, things like that. But it's going to check on the API, and it's basically going to ask the Kubernetes API, hey, so we just got all this information here. I just want to make sure that it exists in the cluster. I got the request from here, and I just want to make sure that it is active, it's running, it's there, it's present. You can validate it for me. Kubernetes API will come back and be like, yep, all there. We're good to go. And so then what the follower, or in my case, the leader, will do is it'll look at the Conjur policy as code that we loaded from step 1 and ensure that everything checks out from what the Conjur admin loaded and told Conjur to trust. So if it exists, as far as the Kubernetes API can tell us, and we can also validate the information on the CSR with our policy that we loaded up and basically had it all associated with a specific host ID, then what the follower will do is sign the request. It'll sign the request, and it'll write that information out of band back to the sidecar container. So the sidecar container will receive out of band, not flowing through an AP, any load balancers or any network configuration that could write the certificate and private key to a log or something in plain text to where it can be grabbed by an attacker. But we're going to basically kubectl exec into that container and copy directly into that container the certificate and the private key, so that our Authenticator client has that information, because once it gets that information and it has the certificate, it has the private key, it's ready to go, it's going to talk back to the follower and it's going to say, hey, follower, I got everything. Now, can I please have my authenticated session token, since you have verified that I am trustworthy, I am who I say I am, and you checked it against the API and your policy. Can I please have my token now? The follower will send it the token. That token, however, will be encrypted utilizing the private key that was just returned to our sidecar container, that authenticator. So that sidecar container, which was given out of band that information, can decrypt the session token and then write it to the shared storage memory here. And by it being written to that shared storage memory, the application container can just grab the access token that is written to a file in the shared storage and then make one API request in order to get secrets anytime it needs. Meanwhile, this sidecar will run on an interval of every 6 minutes, refreshing this token to make sure that it's always authenticated and ready to go. Our API keys, our API session tokens have a time to live of 8 minutes, so it needs to be refreshed every 6 minutes. And so that's what the whole purpose now going forward after that initialization is of the Authenticator client, is just checking back in with the follower or the leader, getting a refresh token, decrypting it again, adding it to the shared storage so that the application container can use it anytime it needs to make a request for new credentials. And we wouldn't want the application container to necessarily cache long-term the secrets that it's utilizing, because by using this process, we can now start to introduce rotation of the secrets. We can change the secrets, and it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, the application is going to be making a request just in time to get the values it needs to make its connections to the target backends or to the target services and things like that. We're not breaking the whole entire process. We're not having to wait for maintenance windows to change passwords that are stored within the Kubernetes platform itself using secrets or whatever. We can make those changes at any time. Keep those secrets and those tokens within compliance if there's compliance regulations that are associated with this. The sky is the limit from that point. So all of that, though, is basically what I'm setting up, is so that this authenticator can be able to complete this process in an unattended, automated fashion that doesn't require any other input from me, except for adding it as a sidecar container to my manifest that deploys my application. Cool stuff. So that's explanation on where we're at. I need to enable this Kubernetes Authenticator now in Conjur. And there's 2 ways we can do this. One way is by creating a config YAML file and having that loaded. And the other way is to use evoke and then update the variables in a manual fashion. It looks like that they go with the evoke way of doing things. Let me see real quick in my Conjure policies if I went the other direction of the config. Let's see. So I don't have a config.yaml here. All of this is going to get ignored. I should probably do that now, huh? So we'll do Conjur. What does that get rid of? That's perfect, actually. that ignored everything. So that was pretty easy. All right, cool. But I don't have my config here. Let me just SSH into my Conjur server and see if maybe I have something locally in there. Sometimes I do that. I would hope I didn't. And if I did, I need to move that out and get it into source control management. So this is Krypton. I talked about this a little bit earlier on the stream. Right now, it just hit my watch and it's asking me if I want to allow this host for 3 hours or allow every host for 3 hours, and then I won't get nagged again about it. I'm just going to allow once because I don't think I'm going to log back into here at all today. There's not really much reason for me to have to log in and deal with my leader, which is a Docker container here. Excuse me. And so let me just take a look in my home directory. It looks like I got my actions runner here. I got Go installed and nothing config wise. It would be in my user home directory if I did. So I must have done the environment variables way. Oh, let's try something. I think I have this written into CyberCLI. I do. So enable authn. So we can do cyber conjur enable authn, and you can see I just auto completed that. There is documentation on the README for CyberCLI on how you can introduce auto completion for it into whatever you use for your terminal or CLI or whatever. Let's take a look at the help. It's going to need the service ID. So the service ID for us is going to be authn k8s and then conjur-demo. And so this should take care of everything for that. Was very quick and very sus. That happened a little too quickly. I guess it did it over API. I didn't write this part. So this was done by Andrew Copeland. Let's just double check. We'll SSH back into my Conjur instance here, and we'll double check it. And I only allowed once before, and thinking I didn't need to come back in, and then here we are. So Docker exec, we're gonna hit my Conjur leader. We're going to evoke. What was it? It was on here. Evoke variable list. Conjur authenticators. This will show me. Oh wow. Oh, this is. How maybe nothing is active. Did I never enable an authenticator? I haven't. This is the first authenticator. Okay, well, it didn't work either way. I don't know what enabling the authenticator is doing, but we'll go ahead and yeah, there's nothing there. I mean, there's not even authn though, which is really weird. Let me go into the container itself. Maybe I did the config within the container because now I remember doing it somehow outside of evoke. All right, so that's linked with that. Where would I have done the? Let's just do history. So this is me installing the Docker stuff. This is me checking for the variables before, and then I came into. Am I not in the? No, I'm inside the container, so what the heck? Ah, etc conjur config. Okay. We'll go there. Whoops. Oh my gosh. I'm fat fingering today like insanity. So we'll cd into config and then cat conjur.yaml. And so this is what I was looking for, the config file here. So it looks like I did activate everything but Kubernetes. So we'll go ahead and nano this because I am a nano bro. And we'll add on authn k8s conjur demo. And then we need to load that in somehow. What do I need to do after that? Let's see. I'm trying to avoid having to click around the documentation any more than I need to. Okay, so it's evoke configuration apply. Conjure server reboot initiated, new configuration will be applied. We can exit out. And so that should enable the authenticator. So that's it. You know, you can do it this way. But like I said, we do have a new way where you basically create a YAML file to deal with it. And so now we can verify that the Kubernetes Authenticator is configured and enabled by doing this. Did I exit? Oh my God, I exited out of this stupid thing. Whatever, we don't need to do that. We'll do curl https conjure.showgarcia.dev info. And there it is. So it is enabled. Whether it works or not is unknown. It is configured. And of course it's installed. So cool, cool, cool. Awesome. All right. So we set up the Kubernetes Authenticator. And that took us quite a while. Quite a while. So there are automated ways of doing this. I avoided them because I like experiencing it raw, because 9 times out of 10 what happens to me is I walk into a POC and I can't introduce any automation into the whole entire situation and I end up doing it by hand. But it's not me doing it by hand as quickly as I just did it here today. It's me explaining to someone all of the keys to push and mouse clicks to do and where to go and what to do. And so what ended up taking us about, I'd say, an hour if I didn't talk so much and get off track and have to deal with the dogs and stuff, typically takes about like 3 hours when I have to, you know, tell it to somebody and explain what we're doing throughout the process and stuff like that. So we've got the authenticator up and running. Now what I can do is I can start to utilize this authenticator by way of the client in order to create host identities for different applications. I don't need to worry about the API key at all for those host identities. I'll never need that API key because it should always run through the authenticator and then use the platform over that, the attributes of the platform over the API key, the need for the API key. So in our web services, we should have our authenticator here. Where is it? Right here. So this is all good to go. So between now and then, I do want to get at least one application up in here. But for the next stream, I will save an application so that everyone can watch how to then take the authenticator once it's configured and deploy an application that utilizes the authenticator sidecar client. Looks like we got a follow from Herky. What's up, Herky? Good to have you on the stream. I'm actually getting ready to wrap up. I typically stream until about 1 o'clock. I'm going to try and fit in another one this week, probably around Friday time frame. That would be because I'm making up for next Tuesday, which I'm off. I still think that even though I'm off, I'll still stream, but it's not going to be anything DevOps or related or code related. It will more than likely be me streaming New World, which is a newer MMORPG that was released that I'm highly addicted to. And so since it's my day off, mental health day, very nice of my work to give me that, I'll go ahead and I'll stream a couple hours of that. And we can chat about the game and if you have any questions or whatever. But so maybe we'll have a random meet up here on Twitch again. We'll do another stream here sometime this week as time allows. Typically Fridays are my more open day, sometime around the same time frame. So if I do commit to that, you can check back to here on Twitch and check out my schedule, and I will add it to the schedule as soon as I decide whether that is good or not. I just kind of got to give it a day to see how my week is going to turn out, considering I'm taking a couple days off next week. But like I said, nobody likes to work on Friday. So if we can fit in a stream, even better. Hopefully you all enjoyed hanging out with me. I definitely enjoyed hanging out with you all in chat today. And this will be available as a video on demand. So if you did happen to miss any of the stream, you can check it out after this stream on a video on demand, or you can head on over to YouTube. Infamous Joe G over there is the channel, and it will be exported and provided there as well. So if you can't find it here, you can find it there. Other than that, hope everybody has an excellent rest of their Tuesday. Until then, stay safe and secure.